So when interviewing Johan 2 years ago for the podcast, we spoke about making $100,000 in 1 year, and it was impressive. But since then, he's been really killing it, hacking not only on GitLab, but also programs like Apple, Google, or Yahoo. And in this interview, I'll try to uncover all his secrets. So enjoy my interview with Johan Carlsson. Hello, Johan. How are you doing? How has these 2 years been to you?
Hello, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you're the first guest that makes the second appearance.
Yeah, no, I'm having a great time. It's been so. Has it been 2 years?
Yes, the previous episode was in January 2023. Yeah. For the record, we're recording this in December 2024, and we're also in person in Sweden. So it's almost 2 years.
Yeah, that's crazy in many ways.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's been a ride, and a lot of things are the same, and some things have changed. I'm still on GitLab, but I also hunt on other programs, but I think the big thing, of course, is that I've gone full time.
Yes, that's the big thing.
From what I did previously. So I'm from August, so it's almost, I guess it's like 4 months or something. But I also did 3 months before the summer, where I just tried it out, like taking a break from my regular job and testing it to see if it could fly.
What pushed you to quit your job?
It was a combination of, it was not a problem with the job per se. I was working as a developer, like front-end developer. There was a combination of the being able to be more free with my time, having a big family and being able to like do whatever I want with my time. And also with my interest in like security, and that I didn't really get to like fulfill that doing regular development work. So
how has the life changed since you quit? Was it as you expected it to be?
Yes, I mean, I guess so. I've had a lot of, it has changed in many ways that is not related to bug bounties. Like I got my fourth child during this time. So it's, I've been doing it full time, but I have not been working full time. I've been a full time hunter, but my time has been a bit scattered between different things. But it has given me like the feeling of like I can control what I do myself, which has been really amazing.
And when we spoke 2 years ago, I felt like I'm saying the same things, but then it seemed incredible that you climbed the GitLab leaderboard so quickly. I don't remember which place you were at 2 years ago.
No, I don't remember. I was top 10 at least.
Top 10 something. And I was like, wow, he made top 10 in GitLab in 1 year. But it seems like the bugs have to stop somewhere. Yet, not 2 years have passed and you're now top 1. Huge congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And how on earth is it possible? There are still so many bugs.
I mean, that was definitely one of my big milestones that I wanted to reach, because when I got at the top 10, that I think you could get into top 10. I don't remember the numbers now, but you can be at least like around 1K in reputation points or something like that.
Yeah.
And the people at the top at that time had like 3K. So it still felt like there's a long way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I almost made 1K reputation points this year or something. It's like, so in the end, crazy. I did a huge rush to the top. But I mean, so that's also the strange thing with these reputation scoreboards, that they keep this. A lot of the people at the top 10 are not really active hunters on GitLab anymore.
Yeah.
So I think I'm definitely one of. They've added this new feature on Hackerone where you can actually see scoreboards for each year instead. So you can pick a year and they will like rearrange it for And I've been number one all of these years except one. For some reason, some guy beat me 1 year, like 2 years ago. I'm really happy with that.
Are you planning to stay with GitLab for the future?
I will definitely hang around there as long as it. I'm still amazed that I find it's not. I don't even feel like I'm doing the same thing. I find new ways of like learning new skills and learning new techniques while staying at this target. So, and they are very fair to me and to other people as well. Like they're a really good program. So it's hard to change just for whatever reason. If they decide to stop paying or rewarding or doing another change, maybe I will move on. But
is it more after so much time, more like just auditing the new code, or is it still after so much time you still haven't explored all functionalities that have been there?
It's still definitely a mix, even if I think it's a bit more leaning towards newer code. But people are definitely, not only me, but other ones are definitely finding things deep inside the old code as well. So there's a lot of things to find there.
Yeah, I imagine I haven't looked at the source code, but I imagine there's just so many pieces of code that are just hard to trigger. That you just don't know this feature exists, or you don't know there was this particular case and all of a sudden new code does a similar thing. And I imagine you just randomly discover these endpoints. No?
Yeah, and that's actually one thing that I have changed, or that I've forced myself to actually finally do, is to start using the GitLab development kit, which is like the development environment that they are using when you develop things in GitLab. And as it's Ruby based, you actually have access to, it's like an interpreted, so it's like running the code as you.
Can you have like debug breakpoints and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And you can also start a console where you have access to the code, so you can trigger functions and you can call functions using things from the database, for example. So you can say give me the first project in the database and then throw it into this function here that takes a project or whatever.
So you can speed up the testing a lot, no?
Yeah, definitely. So you can, when you get a hang of it, you can start like poking at things that you don't really know how to get to yet. And it's really useful. And I don't have no idea why I didn't transition to it earlier than I did.
Well, last time we were recording the podcast, you were just after stopping looking at the code through the website.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I watched it and you were just recently I pulled GitLab to my local disk.
So there's definitely things that I'm doing a bit more structured. At the moment. Yeah.
And now I think about it, for a lot of projects, probably you can speed up the testing when you have the source code, obviously. And especially when you have the debugging access, you can, instead of like running the intruder attack or something like this, you can just do a for loop and run a function in the for with different inputs, stuff like this.
Yeah. And actually something that really inspired me as well was, I don't know if you saw this SAML bypass bug that was also like really impressive on its own. Like the bug was really impressive, and also like really old code and super critical. But I saw some write-up like when some other people like tried a similar thing. They were like recreating it or whatever, and they sort of like broke out a piece of the code and built their own little like in isolation, and they could remove the things that they knew didn't really impact. And then they could like iterate looking at this piece of code really quickly. And that really inspired me. I will try to do more of that as well during code review.
Can you specify this? I don't think I fully got that.
So they, I think in that blog post, they wanted to see how GitHub, in that case, were handling the SAML their SAML implementation.
Yeah.
So they took the code that you can extract from GitHub if you figure it out.
Yeah.
And they just took that piece of the library and they recreated almost like building a test case if you're a developer, like mocking some parts and just like making sure that it works good enough. And then they could run like a lot of tests on it quickly because they don't have to go through the whole application. They can just break out that piece of code and like try to break it and then try to fit it into the application again.
Oh, because there were 2 blog posts about the SAML bypass. One was GitLab, one GitHub, right? And I think I only read the GitLab one.
Oh, yeah.
And the one you're saying is GitHub.
Yeah, I think it was from the...
So they discovered this bug through like fuzzing the SAML?
Yeah, I don't know if they fuzzed it, but at least they broke it out to test it very quickly with like automation to just like send a bunch of... Because then they could remove some of the things that would make it slow, that you would have like certain timestamp checks or whatever. That doesn't really matter for the final exploit.
Yeah, that's nice. I also wanted to understand SAML a bit after this, because still I spend a lot of time on the SSO, but SAML,
it's a mess.
So SAML is like, is there? And there's SAML writer, and I may try the attack from this. And then it's pretty much end of my notes about it. If you were to approach a new system that is as complex as GitLab, how would you start doing this?
It's been on my to-do list since like going full time to expand, to have like one or two more targets to be like my main go-to targets. I haven't really managed to do it yet. I think one of the reasons that I've managed to stay for so long at GitLab is because I found it like interesting as well, like the application, the functionality. It's connected to my job as a developer. It resonated with me. So I would approach it sort of like I approach this, I guess, like trying to find the functionality that I want to test, that I have like a hunch that something could break, and then I test that, and then like move around in the application is to try to find layers. And that's sort of like what's the luxury, I guess, with doing bug bounties, is that no one is checking on you, like how thorough you go through the application or wherever. You can just like browse around.
There's no consequences for missing a bug.
No, exactly. Except like mental. But and also, I mean, you have to. So one of the big changes from going full time is that I now have to rely on the income from bug bounties to actually pay my bills and my own salary and all of that. So that sort of shift did happen like from day one, that you sort of have to find things, right? And that there is like a mental shift there that if you don't like constantly find something that is like bringing income, it starts to be, so even if you're like free to do whatever you want, at least you have to like, it has to bring something.
You're not, you don't feel completely free.
No. And I'm still in the camp of my big like inspiration. Before I went full time, I listened a lot to like interviews with Alex Chapman. And his like ideas of like finding fewer but bigger bugs, and also like not really doing it like to maximize income, but like a sufficient income and like enough, and also enough to be able to keep it interesting and doing it for the fun of like learning and exploiting.
Yes. But at the same time, it's funny because I thought about him before you mentioned his name, because he had the exchange or just a post on Blue Sky recently about escalating some bug, as always, probably Chromium RCE. And also, even though he keeps it fun, he also, as a full-time hunter, looks at the return on investment. And he was saying, on a low-paying program, perhaps you can be, if the program, let's say, downgrades your bug to a medium, in his case, it's an RCE, where he can access the AWS access keys. So he can't really prove the impact. He has to rely on the team, and the team says it's medium. And the whole post was about escalating this to a bigger severity bug. But then he was like, if this program doesn't pay that well, there's no ROI on this to escalate it. I actually had the similar thing. I had, as I told you before, I was spending some time on the program that has like the typical Hackerone payout. So the medium is 500, the high is 1000.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, if I have the, let's say, the SSRF, and I would like to approach you to escalate it from medium to high, I'm still getting the same 500.
Yeah.
So, and also there's somebody else puts in their time and effort, and maybe they are rewarded. So in the end, it's plus EV, but it's not like a no-brainer if you think about it from the full-time perspective.
It's actually something that I've been thinking about, like pros and cons of different programs lately. And another thing that I'm really happy about at the GitLab program is that they don't have like a linear bounty table.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's
exponential.
Not exponential. I don't think it's exponential.
Well, but we know the type of graph
you have the curve that
about.
if you move from medium that tops at like 2.4K or something, and you end up at high, which starts at like 5 and ends at 15 or something, and then critical starts at like 20. So there's a real incentive to at least try to escalate to high. Like that jump is really important.
Yeah.
And other companies, like say, for example, GitHub, where I haven't hunted as much, and they really they pay like 4K for mediums, which is impressive.
Yeah.
And I think you can get even more. You can get up like 10K for medium. But the criticals are still end at 30, like the same as GitLab. So it's much more linear, and helping out, as you say, in that scenario makes less sense. So I really like the exponential thing, because it incentivizes like working together and like pushing bugs to their limit, so to speak. So
also makes sense if you have I imagine you have loads of gadgets hidden somewhere in GitLab.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of a sudden you can chain them, and then instead of 500 plus 500, you have, much more than 1 plus 1. So interesting. Although when I look at the program, I think I prefer the linear one, because I think at the end of the day, you end up reporting highs. Maybe the one you said where the high is also higher than medium
exactly.
Makes sense, because there are quite a lot of programs that are sort of flat up until the high, and then exponential critical, which they never pay.
No, exactly. You have
to.
I definitely agree that you want to have those high mediums as well. And in a way, you kind of get spoiled with like these big programs. And I don't know, maybe that's, at least for me, that my way of working is that I spend a lot of time pretty slowly on this one program, finding like 1, 2, 3 issues, and then like nothing, and then something more. And like doing that sort of work on a program that like tops out at like 3K wouldn't be, it's just not worth it for me. So I skip all of those invitations or whatever to, I think there's enough bugs on the big targets out there. So that's why if I'm not looking at GitLab, I'm usually just like looking at like Chrome or whatever else, like big applications.
Yeah, we can maybe jump to this. Last time you said you were planning to do some browser hacking. How has this go?
It hasn't really gone as planned, I guess. I still have it on I report things once in a while, like smaller issues that I find when I still tinker a lot with Chrome and web standards and web features and things like that, even if I'm maybe in my main hunting trying to move a bit more to the like back-end bugs and stuff like that as well to increase impact. But I find some like quirks and strange things once in a while, and then I report them. but I haven't done it in the consistent way that I would have hoped. So
it's more like you're working on something and you have the idea of something that could be a bug in the browser.
Yeah.
And then you look more report it rather than actually spend time researching.
Yeah. Right? And I mean, I guess it's quite a big hurdle to spend all that time to actually start finding things in the browsers like consistently.
Yeah.
But it's still a dream to be able to do that as well. It's like one of the biggest like open source projects that you can attack. So
would you like to learn like the memory related bugs to find actual RCEs and stuff in browsers, or are you still trying to stick to this kind of bugs that sort of requires only the web-based knowledge?
Yeah, it hasn't really caught my interest that much. So maybe because I think it looks really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe eventually. I mean, I've been trying to move to the back end and like more proper code review on GitLab during the last year at least. And it's been very interesting. So I'm like moving in that direction, but not at that like low level as when you are finding those kind of memory corruption things.
Yeah, for me it's crazy. Can you give us an example of a bug from the browser that you reported? I imagine if they are in Chromium, I guess the issue tracker is public, no?
Yeah. I guess I think I actually saw, maybe you mentioned something about it, and I was supposed to write a blog post and then I found a bypass to it, but now that's fixed as well. So that was like a funny... I hadn't really thought much about it, that you could like serve HTML in XML or like XHTML.
Yeah.
And also in SVG, like all of these like XML based like languages that are baked into browsers. And then I remember like, so this was maybe at the time when we had our last interview, like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah.
I think Reinepak, he posted some tweet about like someone had stolen his POC and like bragged about it on Twitter, about just like how to build like an HTML attack and like getting execution through like HTML. And I started to play with that because I hadn't really thought too much about it. So I played around with it and tested it. And then all of a sudden because I knew that you could get some things uploaded on GitLab, which I always test my things on. And I put some HTML in I don't remember if it was in an SVG or some other XML file, but I was on my bus from work and I was doing this on my phone, like hacking. And all of a sudden, like I saw my iframe that I have made like on GitLab's webpage in this XML document that I have created. And I got like really hyped. This was during like a 20 minutes transit from work. And I was like ran home and like, shit, this is like probably like the biggest thing that I've ever found, like some sort of like bypass on their like, because it was on when you can look at like raw content of a file, you can do that on GitHub and GitLab and whatever. You can click the raw and you just see it as a text plain, I guess. And I got home and I opened my computer and I looked at it and it was just text again. So that was really disappointing. But then I looked at my phone and it was rendering at HTML. And at that time, it took a while for me to figure out what's actually going on. But I had stumbled on a bug where WebKit were actually like mime sniffing, which is an old concept when the browsers try to figure out what sort of content you are providing.
Yeah, so which usually happens when there's no content type header.
Exactly. But the issue here with WebKit on iOS, so like they have two different branches, one for the desktop and one for iOS. And so for some reason they were mime sniffing even if you served text plain. If you had like a dot like an extension of XML or SVG or whatever, or JPG, or like you could serve whatever sort of content you wanted.
It worked for any extension.
Yeah.
Oh, so you could serve just XHTML.
No, you could serve anything as long. So it would first look at the extension of the name or the path, and then it would look at the name in the content disposition, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So even if that was like .xml, and then it would look at the content type or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really messed up.
Okay.
And I had some fun with it because apparently it worked on GitLab. I didn't really manage to bypass CSP fully because you're still restricted by CSP. But on the self-hosted one, you could get XSS. And on GitLab, I could manage to do some like clickjacking CSRF thing to actually do things, because you could render, and also you could render like a login screen. And
I think that was in the report.
Exactly.
There was form, SRC, and HTTPS URL. So I think you created the login form to your website, which would be autofilled. So if the user clicks the button or is somehow clickjacked,
it was actually also send it back to get the 2FA code as well. I built this whole
nice.
POC. So you had like 2 SVG files, one for the getting the passwords and one for the code, and everything was like loaded on the GitLab page. I had a lot of fun with it, but in the end it didn't really pay that much. But it was.
So you reported it both to GitLab and to Apple as well.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I also reported it to Chrome because it worked on Chrome on iOS, which is sort of a bug bounty hack that they sometimes step in and like push for changes because they are forced to use the WebKit on iOS, but you can because Apple, they don't really pay for those kinds of small issues. Yeah.
So you didn't get paid from Apple?
No. But Chrome paid me some, so that was
that's good. That's weird, but that's good.
Yeah, it's strange. And then I was like a year ago or something, I was actually gonna write like a blog post about this whole thing. And then when I was like testing my payloads, I found a bypass to it because they had only fixed like some of these extensions. And I think that I had left, for example, XHTML. For some reason, they were still like mime sniffing that bug.
So today, is HTML any helpful in terms of not looking for browser bugs, but bugs in websites?
Not really. I guess there are like lists out there of the type of files that will allow you to render HTML.
Yeah.
And that's one of them, and SVG is another one. And there are some.
So it's useful if there is a block list of extensions.
Yeah, sort of. If they block like HTML files or whatever, and you can get HTML in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just harder to work with HTML because you have to be strict to the XML standards.
Yeah. I had the case recently which makes less sense than your example, because I was testing a website. And I could go through I wanted to connect my TikTok account with like the real account which has followers, because I needed to pass some threshold for something. And as the testing browser, I use any Chromium-based browsers. Yeah. As my personal browser, I use Safari, which I know is insecure and I shouldn't do it, but I like it. And I realized that I can go through the flow, like register on the website without confirming the email if I go through the particular flow. So then I was trying to reproduce this in a Chromium-based browser. It didn't work. Of course, it took me a while to figure out. And for some reason, I don't think it's a client-side thing. It's like a server-side profiling. Mm. It allows me to go through the registration without confirming the email on Safari, not on other browsers. I like limited all the other variables, and I guess they just have, different flows for different user agents. And it was fun.
I mean, that's one of the fun things with the browser, looking for browser quirks and bugs, is that at least you have 3 big targets,
Yeah.
and they behave differently sometimes, and so you always have this like you can test it, and it's pretty fun trying to find these like discrepancies between them. And I don't know, so one thing that actually came out of this, so I made a small challenge, a web challenge thing that I sometimes post on my social media. I'm moving a bit more to Blue Sky than Twitter at the moment.
Yeah.
But I made one that was it was related to this XHTML thing. I don't really remember what I was trying to do. I think I was like filtering a lot of things that you could then in XHTML, you could like bypass it by using like namespaces. So you could like prepend all of the HTML tags with like X : and then the relation, and you can like create this like fake HTML that could bypass something. And then a lot of people sent in solutions where you can use this in XML, which is also connecting to SAML, because SAML is also XML. So they also have this idea of like some sort of like transformers, so like tags that transform the document, maybe connected to like XXE things as well.
Yeah.
But you can like transform the document in place, like when it's rendering. Some people like manage to bypass my sanitation by like transforming the document in place. And there's definitely something that you could like, there's things to learn there that could potentially do something. So that was, so maybe there is something to them that you can still use.
I feel like a lot of the browser challenges, even though they are made by people like you who know a lot about the client-side security, still they often have unintended solutions because of things like this. So it just shows you how complex the client side is.
Yeah.
Speaking of these challenges, how often, or maybe which features of these challenges where you have like limited car sets or strange CSP, which of these things you use in those challenges are the most useful in real life bugs?
So I've actually, this year, I think I've used like 3 or 4 like really strange browser quirks in like escalations of client-side bugs. That some things that I thought like I would never probably be able to use this, or like why would I ever have to use this? But then I found myself in like a corner where the only way to get out was like using one of these like strange gadgets. And that's what I find. So a lot of time when I do my small challenges things, it's one way to get like, I like the interaction between these like really smart people. They always like, it's sort of like a phishing thing. They send you like really smart payloads. So you can learn a lot from these really like super talented people. But it's also often they are like based in something that I have encountered on a real target. And then I just tweak it to like fit whatever what I found interesting. So instead of like doing a blog post or whatever, I do a small challenge so that people can like get the experience of finding something themselves, which is sometimes like more useful than reading about what someone has done. But then also I made a challenge recently that was more like an open-ended research thing. I don't know if you saw it. Like you were supposed to like try to get like the smallest payload that could like fetch a script and execute it. And that was more like a research question. Like I didn't really have time to do too much on it myself. I did enough to use it on a real target. But then it was like this thought, like how small could you make this? And it was really fun to see all these people come together and try to like break it down. And then they also found like mistakes by me in my actual challenge and like abused it to make it even smaller and stuff like that. It's really fun.
So what were the other gadgets that you used in real life that you didn't expect?
So I guess some of them I still keep as...
of course.
So there's also like one change from becoming like full-time hunter. You kind of have to start to build your own toolbox of things that you can become like good at and that you can bring forward when you need it.
Yeah.
I guess. But I had one really fun one that I got to use together with Matan.
Whoa, that's a good collab squad.
Yeah. I mean, we have had some good. He found some fun things on GitLab that we have then collaborated on, like taking them a bit further and doing some bypasses and things like that. But we had one situation when and that's like, and this is really quirk and niche, but we were stuck in a web worker, which is like a thread in like an execution thread of JavaScript. But we needed to get to a service worker, which is another sort of web worker. But the service worker is more like in control of navigation, and you can use a service worker to like control what sort of content is served to the application and so on. And then you cannot really make that switch. But for some reason, if you go to MDN and look at the description of web workers, you can actually see that like there's one green box on like that you can access the service worker functionality or API from a web worker. And then it's just like green on Safari, which is like super strange. All of the other browsers had like closed this off like from a long time ago. Like you cannot touch or create a service worker from a web worker. But for some reason, Safari allows this.
Yeah.
So we found that, and we managed to like make the jump. If someone was using Safari, you could make this jump, then that could finish our chain. That would it was like a big chain of like random stuff. But I was really, really happy that we managed to use this like forgotten, I guess, feature that I don't see any use for it. I have no idea why it's still there. And it's also like documented, so it's not a bug or whatever. It's
that's why I'm saying I shouldn't use Safari.
Yeah.
But it just well integrated. What can I do? I can't help myself. How about content security policy? What do you do when you have the XSS or HTML injection and there's CSP? What's your first? What do you first look at?
Yeah, I don't remember when we spoke 2 years ago, if I was already deeply invested in CSP bypasses.
I don't think so.
No, but it's become one of those things. I really enjoy it, just as I enjoy cross-site scripting, which I find to be like a puzzle. Like I enjoy it in the same way as like solving Sudokus or puzzles or crosswords. And the CSP bypasses a lot of times could be like, it's like an extension of cross-site scripting, and something that you can prove. I like it way more than WAF bypasses, like web application firewalls. Those to me feel very random and strange, and you cannot really use. I mean, you can use logic against them, but they don't really interest me because they're very like they're specific for the application, and they are like you have to throw like ugly things at it, while a CSP bypass is often more beautiful because you have like you're bending the rules and you're like finding these gadgets and things to get past it. So I don't know. The way to do it is of course just like the holy grail is to get a full XSS. So you have to first go to like the script source and see whatever they allow there. And if it's too hard, maybe you cannot do anything. And then you can start looking at what sort of like loose HTML things can you do? Can you do like form injections and form actions or base tag, take over the base tag and stuff like that?
Yeah. So we covered we can do the form to your website if it's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
You did the form SRC or form action is the attribute that controls this?
Yeah, form action. And it's so the thing with that one is that it's not covered by default source.
Yeah, that's important.
And it's the same with the base tag.
Yeah.
I think So base and form are like outside of that default, because the default is usually set to something like none or self or something like that.
So if you cannot execute JS, these are the sort of two things that you look at?
Yeah, but then also for the JavaScript, like if they have a whitelist, you of course go and look for like script gadget things. And speaking of like gadgets that I've been able to use, like just this past year, I've been able to use this trick where you have a whitelisted domain with a path, but then if you hit like a redirect on that path, then you're allowed to hit or like load code that is like from the base path.
Okay.
So after the redirect, any path will be ignored, and they will only look at the base URL of each of your whitelisted objects.
So wait again. So you have some path in the CSP, and the resource should start with this path. But then if under this path there is a redirect, you are allowed to do anything on the same host?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's interesting that there is a validation, but only to the host, no?
Yeah. And I think one thing that a lot of might miss there is that you can also, like, after the redirect, the path requirement is removed from like everything on the CSP, I guess. So you can actually start to look again on like these other ones as well. Like so for example, the frame source, like whatever you can frame, you might find something there that they are allowing you to frame like / assets / whatever. But if you can redirect that, you can all of a sudden frame things from the base path as well. So that I've been able to use in like these sort of like clickjacking scenarios where they maybe allow you to frame something, but then you can frame something that is much more dangerous because it's like on the default.
Yeah, and I believe still the Chrome password manager autofills the password inside the iframe, even if it's different origin. Is it correct?
I don't think if it's different origin, I don't think it does it anymore.
Okay, I think it does it if it's sandbox then.
Maybe.
Because I think we had this case. Okay.
Yeah.
There's something with this.
It's definitely. I've seen things like that as well, but I think it's important to keep in mind that there are more parts to the CSP as well.
Yeah.
So it's like the script is one thing, but you can do other fun things like framing and things that could be dangerous.
How to, let's say you have some custom JavaScript that's whitelisted as a script SRC, and it has, I don't know, thousands of lines after beautifying. How would you start even looking for a gadget to exploit to be able to escalate your XSS to execute JS through this JavaScript?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been in that situation too many times, I guess. Like a lot of for some reason, the big companies actually have their like source maps out there, so you can see it where I've been hunting like GitHub and GitLab and things, so you can actually see what's going on. But otherwise, I mean, that's one of the things that you get not for free, but like a bonus for spending a lot of time on one target or like a couple of targets, is that you find these things and then you can keep them in your notes, for example.
Because I think you used the same GitLab CSP bypass a few times at least, no?
Yeah.
Because I think there was the same bypass that kind of everyone knew about and people used it for years.
Yeah. There's been a few of them. They've been starting to close off more and more.
Not good for you, is it?
But there's still ways to get around it, and depending on what you can inject and not. So, I mean, it also adds, even if it's boring, that when they remove them, it also adds to the game that you have to find new ones.
Yeah.
And when you find a new one, you get really happy about that as well. So.
What other client-side bugs are you finding apart from XSS?
Something that I've been also have had quite like a surprising amount of success with is DOM Clobbering.
Okay.
not on its own, but like as a part of a chain or a gadget or whatever.
Yeah.
It's actually way more useful than you like initially think. Just to be able to, for example, I had one bug on Gmail. It was sort of a combination, the worst kind of in bug bounties when you mix programs, which ends up that no one really wants to award you. So it was a combination of like, you can, in emails, of course, you can send HTML. That's why it looks so beautiful. And you can send forms if you want to.
Oh,
and some email clients will actually render these forms in different ways. And they will do some sanitizations and stuff like that. But Gmail, for example, will actually render the complete form with form. It will change the passwords fields to text fields. So they will be of type text, but it will have the whole form and everything. And if you click submit, it will pop up a warning saying like, you're submitting things to an external page. Do you really want to do this? And you click no. So I found a bug using. There was a couple of password managers that could do like autofilling, and they don't really care about whether it's a password field or not. They're really like happy to fill whatever. Like if you give it a name password and not the type password, a lot of them will fill it anyway in plain text, which is really strange. But they will do it. And I also found a way to trick some of these password managers to actually auto-submit if you put the text field inside of the submit button, because they will actually, because they want to pretend that they are human.
Yeah.
So they will actually send like a click action to the form field.
Okay.
And if that is inside of the submit button, the event will propagate up to the button and it will click it and submit it.
So you have like a login field, a normal password field, and another password field inside of the button?
Yeah, or the password field that they want, because they will fill it first and then they will trigger the...
Oh, yeah, okay, so you don't need to correct.
And I tried to submit that, but the password storage companies are like, I don't know, their threat models is really strange. They don't care about things like that.
Yeah, I'm not having good time with that.
No. But so that was like one sort of a bug that I felt like it was a bit strange that this one password manager did actually allow you to autofill. When you open an email, you had a form in Gmail and it would autofill your Gmail credentials because, as you said, they will look at just like Google or whatever, like
the TLD.
Yeah, and
I mean top window.
Exactly, and some people might have like the password saved then on the Gmail, so it will fill there and it will click, but then you will get blocked by this Google protection thing.
Yeah,
and then I went into the source code and found that the check they were doing was like they found the form element, or like they catched the submission, and then they looked at the element and they did like element dot target equals blank, like question mark. And one thing that they did was if you put a form in there, they would put like target blank because they wanted this thing to trigger. Like Google, when they rendered the form, they wanted it to trigger. But then I could use DOM Clobbering then to put to name one of these fields to target. So you have a form, and inside of the form you have an input field with the name target. And then if you have the element of the form and you do dot target, you will get the input field and you will not get the value of the target thing. And the input field will not equal blank.
Yeah.
So then you would skip the
warning. Yeah.
So the final POC was actually like if you opened an email, your password thing would autofill and submit it, and you would lose your credentials to Gmail.
Yeah, that's a cool bug. for which nobody has paid. That's correct?
No. Google actually paid me for they paid me for the DOM Clobbering, so that was nice.
Okay, nice.
They paid like 1,337 or whatever it is. They're like,
yeah, that's cool.
Gadget thing. So that was really good. And I think that, to be fair, I think I got like 500 or something from the password manager as well.
So in the end,
they did something. I don't really know what they fixed, but they did something. But I thought it was. I mean, the bug. It looks much cooler than the payout. I think.
Yeah, and it's a cool idea as well. I don't think I ever used DOM Clobbering on a real world target. Maybe I feel like I see your bugs, I see Matten bugs, I see all the client side bugs, and I'm like, I should spend more time on the client side. How about post message related bugs? Do you find a lot of stuff that starts with a post message?
I haven't actually looked too much into it. I know that it's one of those fields that are still like ripe with bugs. So like one of those like untouched areas where there are, it seems at least to be bugs everywhere. But I haven't really spent too much time on it actually. Probably I should, but
I feel the same. Maybe client-side prototype pollution is the next one that I don't spend too much time on.
Yeah. So when you ask me like what sort of client-side bugs I find these days, that was one that I thought about, but I have actually never found it, and it feels very strange and niche to me, like that it should exist. I know that people sometimes find them, but it's to me it doesn't feel like something that is like super common. Yeah. So it's definitely more common to find. That's something else that you mentioned, these like client-side path traversal things.
Yeah.
Which was actually something that I think you made a video of one of those.
Yeah, my video was about your client-side path traversal in GitLab, because I didn't see a real world example of this, and then we had the interview and you told me you had one. So then I covered it in the video. And I don't think there is many public write-ups about client-side path traversals.
No, I mean, there's been a lot of discussions with it, and I think there's also been a lot of tooling made recently. I haven't really used anything, but I think that people have both like Kaido plugins and extensions to Chrome and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the critical thinking guys created the browser extension for it.
For me, it's more of a hierarchy. Like, I think that the reason why I haven't felt like I need to use it, it's the way I'm looking for these kinds of bugs is usually on GitLab. Yeah. Maybe I find a way, like a new way of getting content into the app. So that's like where I start. Like, okay, if I connect this piece here, it will render data over here. And then I start from the top, like, okay, I want XSS. And then like, okay, it doesn't work. Okay, then I want DOM clobbering or whatever. I want the HTML injection. And then that doesn't work. And then I try like, maybe I can do client-side path traversal or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's more of I just go through different bugs depending on the injection I have, like going from, I found like a source and I try to like do something with it. So I've actually found a few CSP client-side path traversals this year as well. They're a bit hard sometimes to, if they only make, I found some that just made like a get request, and that makes it quite hard to exploit. I managed to show some impact by, again, like chaining it with, as you hear, like there's a lot of chaining of small
exactly.
things, but I managed to chain it with a redirect. And so the get request, it was a get request made by fetch. So it contained a CSRF token in a header.
Yeah.
And then if you redirect that request, you would actually leak the CSRF token to your page.
Yeah.
And then you could redirect that again using the CSRF. So it kind of turns into a CSRF all the way around, or you can just wait for it to like land on your domain. And
because from your website you can directly issue a redirect, which is already the CSRF request.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So there's never like top level navigation to your website.
No, or you could actually like leak it and then make sure that the user ends up on your domain somehow, and you can CSRF it. It's a bit convoluted and it doesn't work all the time, but it was like the best I could figure out using a GET request. Yeah,
the best, but in many targets that would use not cookies, but some custom header for authorization, the header would just be leaked to your website. Then it's then you don't have to do anything more to exploit it. Have you had much success outside GitLab with the client-side path traversals?
No, not really. I think it's a bug. To me, at least, how I work, it would be a bug that requires me to like know the application deeply, to know where to put it, to see where like IDs are rendered or whatever. So I haven't really. The other work I've done has not been related to that.
I have found a few, but never got it to exploit it. Once I had the client-side path traversal, and it was an open source stuff. So I was looking through all the get routes, because it was a GET-based, all the GET routes that would make sense to chain it. And I found one that was actually making changes, and I was happy because I found the gadget for client-side path traversal. And then I realized that I don't need the client-side path traversal because top-level navigation is good enough. So I reported this as a CSRF and never used the client-side path traversal. So that's my experience. Another bug that I also saw for the first time publicly exploited in your bug is a cross-window forgery. Can you tell us what a cross-window forgery is?
So this is actually, it's a research from a guy that I don't really remember his name. I don't know if you have it there, but it was sort of at the same time when I was going to try to do full-time bug bounties, my first 3 months, I guess. There was this blog post about something that he had named then cross-window forgery.
I have his name, but I'm worried I will misspell it badly, but now I think I have to. Paulos Gibello, and no idea what language is this.
That's good enough.
But kudos to him.
I mean, he found this strange quirk in browsers where you essentially, if you are on a page and you, for example, start pressing enter, and that triggers a new window to open, your click, if you keep pressing enter, the click will transfer to the new window and click on maybe something. And then you can chain that with you can use the hash or the fragment in the URL to actually like point to something dangerous, like a button that will accept something or do something, and the click will like transfer to this new window and click on that button. Because
when you press the space or the enter, it will click the button that's focused. And one way I usually use this is probably when I do the tab on the input field, and then I do the tab for the button, and then I press the space. So you can also do it if there's a hash with the ID of the button, then it's sort of automatically focused, right?
Exactly. And I mean, the write-up is fun and fine and great in a lot of ways, but it's also like a pretty strange bug to like. It's hard to see if it's good or bad. Like it requires like really strange behavior in a way, like pressing enter. But I had some fun with it this year because I took it as like an exercise to build POCs, or like to convince companies, like, because so what the worst scenario that I could think of was this, like, you chain this with this sort of like OAuth requirement, what do you call those pages?
The consent
screens. Because the consent screen will ask you, like, are you allowing this application to see everything and act as you? And you have one button that says like, okay. And if you click it, it's done. And then you have like an account to take over. So if that button has an ID, then you could focus that button and you can abuse this to take over accounts essentially.
Yeah.
So my idea was that the impact here is big, even if the like how you get there is kind of like goofy and not really, I don't know if it's realistic or not, but I've sort of spent the time to build this case that we have, or like companies as a community has moved to make people, just like the cookie bar has made people click on all the pages.
Yeah.
We have these like reCAPTCHA or CAPTCHA things that when you go to a page that you sort of trust, like maybe you don't even trust it, but you do something and they say like, yeah, here's a CAPTCHA game. A lot of people will just do whatever it says, like 5 clicks, type something and drag and drop and like do whatever.
Yeah.
So I built the case that like it's not that hard to convince someone like, yeah, press enter 3 times and then you have like a progress bar that is like filling up. And if you drop enter, it will like go down again. So you have to press it for like 3 seconds to prove you're a human or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did that POC, and then I did like I built like a Flappy Bird game where I cloned the Flappy Bird game from GitHub, and I just edit the code so like you play it with the enter, and then like during a period where you're supposed to like go a lot of like up with a bird,
just spam the space.
You have to put like enter for like you have to keep it in to get the bird up. And during that time, I opened this window as like a small pop-up, and it will do the thing. And using those 2 POCs, it actually became quite easy to convince at least these big companies that are like hosting these sort of like consent wealth things that this is actually an issue, because it's really, again, it's also really easy to fix. So the impact is high. The fix is easy. You just remove the ID and you're done. You cannot exploit it anymore. But still, like it's not really maybe realistic, but it's dangerous enough that you could. It could be worth fixing.
Yeah, and also it was also one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, because I even said it in one of the recent videos that sometimes it's hard to get through the triage with non-standard things.
Yeah.
And because this and I would like this to be more standardized, so maybe it's like widely accepted that okay, this is not the interaction is kind of complex, but it's likely. So it's maybe it's not a critical, maybe not a high, but it's in my opinion it's definitely a valid bug.
Yeah, and I mean I must admit that these are maybe the bugs where I felt most like scammy in a way, like doing it's not like I was super proud of what I created.
Okay. If you created the Flappy Bird, it's a cool exploit.
I thought it was fun to send a game and stuff like that, because I've been really inspired by. There's been one guy that I've seen some bugs on Chrome. A lot of like things when. You kind of like click on these different consent things in Chrome that they pop up, like, are you allowed to use the microphone or whatever?
Yeah.
And there's one guy who has sent like 10 or 20 reports, like abusing this. And he always has like a Dino game, like a dinosaur that runs and jumps, and you have to do like different things. And I thought it was really fun to have like this aspect of like building a small game as the POC.
Yeah.
Like, a bit goofy and a bit like light touch.
Yeah, it's nice to play.
It was fun in that way, and I mean it worked out, so it's good.
Yeah, and it's also, I think as I've said, I like it because it's something I didn't know about, and I think it's applicable fairly widely.
Yeah.
Let's now talk a little bit about the server-side bugs. When browsing through your recent bugs on GitLab, at least from the issue tracker, there was a lot of denial of service bugs.
Yeah.
Especially the regular expression-based ones. How is can you talk us more about this?
Yeah. It's I was definitely I was turning into the denial of service guy in the beginning of this year. I think I counted them as well. I think I had 20 accepted reports on GitLab.
Just on GitLab. Wow.
Yeah. that are like denial of service, the two different kinds. And I've also seen that there's been a lot of other people reporting denial of service at the moment. Kind of one of those things that happens with one of those old programs, that you see bug types like come and go, like, and they fix, and then they like fix the root cause eventually, and then people move on to something new. And at the moment, like there's still a lot of like different sending bad content to a GitLab server and trying to crash it.
Yeah.
I was moving. I had been on a break during like December and January, and I was moving into my like 3-month trying out full time in March. So in February, I felt like I had to like start finding something, or like get something going prior to getting into it for full time. And then I decided, I don't really remember how, but I had this hunch that, okay, like ReDOS bugs, people have found them. I have found some of them, regular expression denial of service. And I decided to like trying to actually like root out all of the last ones in GitLab. Like, why does people find them like once in a while? And always like in old code, like why haven't anyone just found all of them? Like, was my idea. So I started to grep through the code base using regular expressions, trying to find regular expressions that could be bad. So it was actually one of my maybe most structural attacks ever. Like I got this like list of like 200 potential. I think I grepped for a couple of patterns, like anything that contained more than one star or plus symbol.
So that's the indicator that ReDOS is.
Yes, sort of. Like the main goal of a regular expression denial of service is to get the regular expression to go into a really, really deep nested search for something. You have something called like backtracking. So it tries to go as far forward as it can, and then it goes back, and then it goes forward again, and back and forward, and it creates this like exponential amount of paths through this whatever you're trying to hit. And when this happens are usually when you have like multiple asterisks or plus. It can happen in other scenarios as well, but that's like one.
So the sort of simple example is if you have wildcard one or more times and wildcard one or more times, and I have the string 3 A's, it can be the first group can be 2 A's, and the second can be 1, and then it can be 1 2 or 2 1. And then with this simple example, it's two different sort of I don't know if it's the tree that's being thrown somewhere, but it's two combinations. And I assume your inputs are not 3 characters long,
and then
more like 3,000.
And actually, something that I had to learn, because the theory is quite easy, but then you actually have to learn to break using your payload. So after all the A's, you have to put like a B or whatever, because it has to fail and then go back and try again, like different paths. And that can be a bit more like, that's a super simple example, but in different cases it could be like a quite like convoluted. But
so you want the sum match to be like almost your whole input, but not sort of the last character.
Something like that. Often, nice. At least, like there are some different ones, and that's I actually learned. Like there are some. It's a classic like research topic. Like there are university people like doing like heavy research into ReDOS bugs. And I actually tried some like Java-based Chinese research things that they put out on GitHub. It didn't really catch more than like maybe it could do, but in the end, what you have to do is like you have to first find the bad regex, and then you have to figure out if you can actually get there. You have to figure out if it's bad, and that you can do with like free. There are web pages where you can just paste regex, and it will tell you if it's like if it could be a problem or not.
Okay.
But then you also have to find a way to get the payload to that place in the application, right?
Yeah.
And most of the times, as you kind of mentioned, is that most of the bad regexps are not that bad, but they are bad if you give it like 500,000 Ks or whatever. Like you give it like a lot of data, and then it will break, because the computers are like, if it would be a computer like 20 years ago, it will probably break easier. But nowadays, like they can do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of those places in, for example, GitLab, where you can get like huge data into like that you control into one of these like semi-bad regexp things.
Yeah. How do they usually? What severity do they assign?
You have 2 levels. I can also like say now that I think Redos is in scope again, but they have actually fixed it at like a language level now at GitLab.
Okay.
So it's sort of a dead bug. But that's also why you see people transitioning into these other sort of like DOS bugs. But it's a medium if you have to have a user. But what you really want to do is you want to be able to send like an unauthenticated request, and then you get like the full. They have some metric that you have to trigger like a 10-second delay on like a specific like setup with a specific set of cores and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they have it in the policy, like how bad you have to make it for it to become high instead of low or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I actually I found like 18 of these bugs or whatever. And every bug I found it like one at a time and exploited them. And I thought like, okay, yeah, that was the last one. Like, I'm done. It cannot be better than this. And then in the end, I think it was like the last 2 I found, because I had like an epiphany, like I was taking a shower or whatever, like a classic shower moment. And I thought like, I saw something strange in the code. Like I remember that I saw something really strange. And I went back and found it. And it was actually in the main, speaking of old bugs, like in the main search bar, when you search for code in GitLab, you can actually put like stars, asterisks in your search.
Yeah.
To search for wildcard matches. And for some reason, I haven't really thought about like how this is implemented. But if you look at the code, at that time at least, it would parse out, because it's not regex, it's just like a star, and it acts like dot star.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the code, they will actually like match and replace in your string all the stars with dot star.
Oh, and then create a regex from it.
And create a regex from it. And so then I could actually create this, the school book example of like searching for, and you would, so you could do it unauthenticated. And something that almost always exists in all repos is the README file.
Yeah.
So I could do like a big R, star, 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 and end it with something that is not MD, right? So like markdown. So it has to end with something else.
Yeah.
And then you could like break it with just like, and usually these redos things, you send like a bunch of requests to like kill all the cores, so they like end up at 100% CPU usage. But it was really fun. So I found like 2 different of those in the end, and they got rewarded as high. So even when I thought like I had found like the last remaining one, I found these 2, and that was right before they put it out of scope. So it was great.
Yeah. You were the reason why they put it out of scope.
I mean, they were actually really, really nice with this, because they had in the pipeline to actually upgrade and kill redos for good, using like updating the Ruby to 3.2 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But as they hadn't, the roadmap was like in 6 months or something like that. So they said like, if you have reported it before now, it will still be dangerous in like 6 months, a 6-month period. So we will still reward it. And then,
okay. We'll be heading to the end of the interview.
Yeah, I think it's actually getting quite dark here now.
It is getting quite dark, and we don't have lights here.
We don't have lights in Sweden,
but if you cannot see us, we're still here. Listen to us. We're still continuing. After just one more question. After so much time and so much things learned, how do you still learn new stuff today?
Yeah, I definitely. I have not. I will still. I think I only will still do this as long as I am learning things. Yeah. I think that's one of the. I can't really see myself just doing it with the grind or whatever. Like, even if I find it really interesting to be able to live off finding bugs and like being in control of my time and everything. One of the reasons why I also when I quit my job was that I felt like I could learn more and quicker if I would do this on my own, like if I can control my time. But that also includes that I want to and need to learn things. Yeah. And how I do it is to remind myself to like go to the correct sources, like reading documentation, trying to become better at using like the right tools and like learn tools. So with all of this like debugging and setting up environments and like taking a small step each day. And then with like the bug types and stuff like that, it's more of a, if you put yourself out there and like you try to, you cannot just try to find whatever you have found before. You have to like be, I don't know, you cannot really call it brave, but you have to put yourself in a position where you think you will fail. Yeah. And then sometimes you will actually succeed and you will make a new step forward. And so, for example, I found my first RCE this year as well, which I really didn't think I could check more boxes after becoming number one at GitLab this year. And that's just the step when you finally do it, it also feels quite easy. And now I only found one so far. So, I have still a lot to learn.
Yeah, well, I think we all do. What are your plans for 2025?
In a way, funny that I think my answer is really similar to when we last spoke, like becoming more structured, creating some automation. I've actually started taking notes. It's always been my thing.
Nice.
That like I don't take notes, but I've been using Obsidian now.
Okay.
And I really, really enjoy it. And I need to get better at it, but at least I just throw things in there, and I've found myself searching for my own notes a lot.
Yeah.
So it definitely helps. But yeah, and I'm
browser hacking on the to-do list as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the to-do list is always like move to a new program, expand. But I don't really have any super big. I'm looking forward to. I've had quite a good success this year, and it's been intense, and there's been a lot of happening. So I want, my big goal is to survive a year, like not, but like mentally feel like it's still interesting and fun. I don't burn out, and like maybe like settle in this new situation of being in control of my own time.
Cool. Good luck with this. Thank you so much for the interview. If you enjoyed it, also you can check out our interview from before 2 years, which we mentioned a few times. There we spoke a little bit more about the university, about the thesis, about getting into the security. So if you enjoyed this one, you will definitely like that one as well. For now, thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.